Welcome back to Retrieving Sanity, a podcast where we dive into the depths of mental health one laugh at a time. I'm your host, Keegan, and I'm here to talk about everything from anxiety and depression to self-care and finding joy in the everyday. Because, let's face it, life can suck, but we don't have to navigate it alone. Retrieving Sanity is a partner with Podcast for Prevention, an initiative from Start Day 1 that aims to prevent suicide and promote mental health awareness. Together, we're working to break the stigma and create a more supportive community. So, grab a cup of coffee, sit back, relax, and let's retrieve our sanity together. And give it just a few seconds, because like I said, it just, for some reason, takes just a little bit for it to go through, and there we go. And hello, and welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your podcast host, Keegan, and this is your podcast for all mental health, addiction, recovery issues, and topics. And today we have a very special guest, and her name is Gail Taylor. How are you doing today, Gail?
I'm doing great, Keegan, and thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm so excited to have you on. You're a storyteller, an author, and you work with music as well. But aside from me trying to introduce you, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, what you do, what your book's about, and all that stuff.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to start with how I ended up getting here in the first place.
Okay.
I worked as a financial advisor for 25 years. And after 25 years, I started taking piano lessons. I was 58 years old. I had never taken music lessons in my life. And oh my God, I fell in love with it. It was so cool. And so after a couple of years of, like, we're talking learning scales and stuff, I was like from beginner. After a couple of years of that, I thought, whoa, I'm going to sell my practice a little sooner than planned. And I'm going to study music full time. So at 61, I did that. I had private teachers. I did Berkeley School of Music because it's online courses, so you don't have to audition, right? It's just you pay them. And so I was taking keyboard, bass guitar, songwriting, ear training. And after a couple of years of that, I thought, maybe I'll reinvent myself as a musician.
Ooh.
And when I shared that story with folks, I kept getting the same reaction. I kept getting, Gail, that's so inspiring. I'm going to go do something they had put on the back burner. And I heard it so often, Keegan, that I thought, whoa, never mind becoming a musician. I'm going to come out of retirement. I'm going to start my own business, Gail Taylor Music, become a keynote speaker, and help folks become their best selves. I mean, I've been studying personal growth for 40 years. And as a songwriter, I can use my music on stage and so that's and then I and then the last part of this story is I hired an entertainment lawyer because it's all inspirational music that I write. And he said, if you want to be a keynote speaker, write a book. And so I said, oh, I can do that, no problem. I had written one on finance before. So I wrote the book called Curveballs, and it's memoirs, lots of personal stories, curveballs that life threw at me. And, we'll talk about it over the next hour, but, death and addiction and all the mental illnesses that you can name. I could ticky-bop half of that. And so... And then after I talk about the story, the personal story, I share tools that I use to work my way through them. And then at the end of every chapter, there's a QR code so you can scan it and go and listen to the song that I wrote that was inspired by that story. So I put a soundtrack in my book.
Huh. That is super cool. I've never heard of someone doing that before.
Yeah, that was pretty neat.
Is that like a Spotify playlist kind of thing that people can
The
listen
QR
to?
code will take them to, it is on Spotify. I do have a channel on Spotify, but the QR code will take them to YouTube because on YouTube there's a video. So it'll take them to a lyric video about the song.
Oh, nice. That is really cool.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've got a lot of life experience, and Curveballs sounds like the perfect name for a book to help people get through, well, curveballs. Um, so what made you decide to really go with Curveballs for the inspiration of the book?
Because I always say to folks that when life throws things at us, and I call them curveballs, but challenges, whatever it throws at us. So using curveballs as the metaphor, it's not. I look at it as it's not the curveballs that life throws at you; it's what you do with them.
Mm.
Right? Like I was listening to your interview that you did with Anne Hinch.
Hints,
When she
yeah.
when she was talking about EFT and tapping, and like to me that
Mm-hmm.
like to me that was so perfect. Like that's a tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's to me that's it. When life throws curveballs at you, go find the tools to work through it, instead of remaining in the victim space. Like pull your, there's so many things that you can do. For me, the beginning of my journey was at 12 years old. My dad died,
Mm.
and I couldn't handle it. I couldn't
Mm.
handle it. My mom was in her mid 30s. She had 6 kids. She
Oh
moved us
wow.
from a small town to a city,
Mm.
and told me years later that she did this to try to keep us off welfare and keep us together, which
Mm.
she managed to do. But I didn't. I couldn't do it. I
Mm.
kept him alive for 2 years. I pretended that he was a spy for the government, and that they had to say that he was dead to protect his family because he was going off to save the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, the city just, it literally chewed me up and spit me out. I was doing drugs and alcohol on a daily
Mm.
basis and high risk behavior before my 13th birthday. Like I became an addict at 12. And
Oh man.
and it took me a decade before I even hit my first bottom. And then there were other bottoms after that.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I get trauma and I get spiraling and I get, if we don't make the conscious choice to work through it,
Mm-hmm.
then it's gonna eat us up.
Yeah, it really will. And first of all, my deepest condolences on the loss of your parent, because that is by far one of the hardest things that I could ever have to imagine going through. So,
Thanks,
um,
Keegan.
yeah, of course. And I'm just so glad that you did pull through, even though I know in the moment it didn't feel like you would have. But you did. And I've got to say that that's an interesting take on death. And being a child, that's such a unique way to handle it too. So I love that because you're using your imagination, but at the same time, I can see how that would just prolong the hurt, and how it would have led to all of those behaviors, and especially at such an early age. But one of the things that we talk about on Retrieving Sanity is the solution, and that's what you're talking about in your book and everything. But of course, it takes a while to get to the solution. So, what were some of the experiences that led you to some of the solutions that you talk about in the book?
Yeah, so my first 10 years later, we'll say, I
Yeah.
was in my 20s. The first time, I'm going to call this my first bottom.
Mhm.
And what happened to me then was I woke up one morning and I I looked around at the mess I made, and not just in my house, in my soul, and I
Mhm.
thought there's got to be more to life. There's got to be a way I can pull myself out of this rut.
Mhm.
And just that little spark of hope started me on a whole new trajectory. I mean, I started reading books about, how to be successful. The first one I picked up was Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And I mean, I'm a dysfunctional 20-something-year-old, so rich to me meant money. I wanted the good life, right?
Yeah.
To him in the book, I mean, some of your listeners have read that book. Everybody's heard of it. And so, so I that was my starting point, but all I did, I still didn't know I was an addict at the time. I was still in denial.
Yeah.
And so I did start using less because I started studying and getting jobs and working. And all I did was sort of transferred into, I became a workaholic.
Ah.
And because I was going after success, I have a type A personality, I can do it. And it was the 80s, so it was that me time. And so I would work long hours, and then I would go to the bar and party with my work colleagues. The unfortunate thing was I had a young son. He was like 3 years old. And I thought in my mind that because I loved him, when I did spend time with him, it was quality time. So that's all that mattered. Quantity didn't matter. It was okay that, you know, as long as I had him with good caregivers and I spent some time, like, yeah, no, that's not what we call parenting. But at that point, that was where I was at. That's all I could do. And then when he turned 12 years old, which was, as you remember, when my dad died, I moved him across the country. I introduced another man into his life. I put him in a new school. I did basically all the things that had happened to me. And guess what? Same thing happened to him. He became an addict, and he, at 12. And I mean, he got caught in the opioid and the fentanyl world. And yeah, and that was my second bottom, because that was like, I got to stop using this. I think this was the first time I even stopped using every day.
Oh, wow.
And it was, I have to stop using to help this kid find his way. And I mean, it took decades. I have his permission to share our story. He's in recovery right now too. And
awesome.
and yeah, and he's an amazing person. He's one of my best friends, but we both talk about, had he not been in recovery, he wouldn't be alive. Because the opioid and the fentanyl is just so scary right now. And how far down that world he was, oh, Keegan, it was just like, we are so lucky. You know, the universe is taking care of us on that one. And so yeah, so that was my first time stopping using every day. And that was sort of maybe around 1993. And it was also when I first went into become a financial advisor. Before then, I had worked in syndicated commercial investment real estate, but this was when I became a financial advisor, which probably had a lot to do with my success in that field, is I was clean. And so it was a whole new person, right? So yeah, so that was when I first pulled out, and that was some of what I went through.
Oh, man. That is rough. And I can only imagine that hit of, like, I don't know, what feeling did you get whenever you had that realization that, oh no, I put my son through the same thing that I went through, and now he's going through the same thing? You know, because to me, that would have, I don't know, you pulled through that. And to me, that would have, like, broke me even more at first, you know?
Yeah. So that, you're right. And that's actually one of the things that I talk about in the book is your self-care, your self-confidence, your self-love. I mean, most folks, including me, do the best they can at that time in their life. And whether you messed up because of you missing a beat on your own, or whether somebody did something to, it doesn't really matter, right? You missed a beat. You can't live in the past. And you know, you have to be able to forgive yourself, just like you have to be able to forgive somebody that victimized you, because that's your way of being able to move on. Right? And so yeah, for me, it was the realization once I stopped using and I started to realize. I actually bought a book once that said, because when I moved across the country, I switched from the harder drugs to alcohol.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I did that switch because I didn't know I was an addict, so I could move across the
Yeah.
country without there being a dealer here. I didn't know I needed one.
Yeah.
So I switched to alcohol, and then I bought
Hmm.
this book that said, "Are you an alcoholic?" And
Ooh,
there
tough
was a
question.
questionnaire. Yeah, the questions, there was like 30 or 40 or some questions. And
Hmm.
it was really interesting because most of the questions had nothing to do with how much alcohol you drank. It had to
Mm.
do with how you ran your life. Like, do
Hmm.
you go to social events that don't have alcohol?
Yeah.
Like, no.
Ooh. Yeah.
Why would I do that? Right?
Yeah.
Like
Those
all these
exist?
yeah, exactly. Or, do you time your activities around your alcohol? So if
Mm.
I'm flying somebody into and that I have to pick up at the airport, I'll make sure that they come in at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, not 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Right,
Hmm.
and so
Yeah. Yep.
so when I answered all the questions, it said that I was in the mid stages, that there were four stages
Mm.
to alcoholism, and I was in the mid one.
Oh.
And so one time when I went to a rehab program, when the family people got to go, I
Hmm.
asked the lady that. I said, "How come I was able to get clean without going to rehab, and being part of a program?"
Hmm.
And she said, "Because you did what we call hitting a high bottom."
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so because a lot of
Hmm.
people think that alcoholism or drug addiction is stage 4 only,
No. It's
right?
way
But it's
before that.
yeah, but a lot of people don't get that. They
Mm-mm.
think if you're in stage 1 or 2 or even early 3, you don't really have a problem. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a problem, quote unquote.
it's a problem when you're drinking, down in a couple of 9 ounces of wine at lunch
Yeah.
and then going back to work.
Hmm. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
so yeah, going through my journey the way that I did,
Hmm.
and reading, a gazillion books on personal growth and self-care, and my family's dealt a lot with depression, anxiety. At one point in my life, when I was in this early part of my journey, I was suicidal. And
Mm.
so that's why I said at the beginning of this interview is that, it's often if you're dealing with anxiety or depression or some other mental disorder, you self-medicate,
Oh yeah, for
right? and
sure.
that's and that's how you end up getting caught in the world of addiction. So if you do get
Hmm.
clean, you're back to, I still have to figure out how to deal with the anxiety and the depression.
Yep.
And so I talk about that in the book, and I actually give a number of books that I recommend, some recommended reading, to
Ooh.
sort of understand. Like, I don't see a difference between mental disorders and physical disorders. Like, so
Mm-mm.
what? You have a broken leg or you have depression? Like, to me, like this
They
whole
both make you. They both make you not want to walk.
exactly. Like the stigma around mental health is just, I don't get it. I think it's
Hmm.
just, it's absurd. Our brain is a physical thing in our body, and the
Hmm.
fact that we're have a chemical imbalance of any sort is just a reality, and we got to figure it out.
Yeah, and I think part of that does lie with everyone that is stable, quote unquote, likes to think that they do everything right, and so therefore nothing wrong happens to them.
Right.
And so that mentality is really easy to spread because it goes from, oh, I didn't do something right, so I can blame myself. And as humans, I know I like to blame something for something, you know?
Right.
And so it's easiest to point it right back at myself and instead of learning and growing from it. But whenever it came to your addictions and stuff, uh, there's a lot of things that go into addiction. And really, of course, the first thing is the choice. Because I like to refer to addiction as the disease of choice because I started with the choice, and then along the way I lost it, and then the only way out of it is to make that other choice.
Right.
So it's also a paradox, right?
Yes.
Um, but for me, my choice started really honestly back whenever I was probably about 15, and then it really exploded whenever I was 18, 19. But for me, it was a culmination of things from childhood to what was being on in a teenager. But that choice, I just wanted to hold on to until I didn't have that choice. Did you ever have that moment where you realized, oh no, I lost my choice in using anything? And I totally get that with the alcohol too, because it's the socially acceptable drug. So,
Right, right. And I think where I realized the choice was gone
mm-hmm,
was when I woke up in the morning and said, okay, I'm going to be a social drinker. I'm not going to
ah,
drink every day anymore. I'm going to be a social drinker. And so
mm-hmm,
Monday morning, I'd wake up and say, I'm not going to have a drink until Friday.
mm,
Well, as soon as I got off work at 4 o'clock, I would come home and have a glass of wine. But I just finished telling myself, 8 hours earlier that I wouldn't drink till Friday.
mm-hmm,
So I would get up Tuesday morning and do the same thing. Okay, you made a mistake yesterday, but whatever. Must have had a
mm-hmm,
hard day at work, and,
yeah,
and I don't, And so, and so, that's when I realized that I didn't have the choice
mm-hmm,
because it. I would tell myself at the beginning of the day that I was not going to consume, and then by the end of the day, I was consuming. And so it's like, what is this all about? Like,
mm-hmm.
why don't I have longer control, a little bit longer follow through on my mind? I do, like, I'm a type A personality. I set a
Mm-hmm.
goal and I go for it. I'm running marathons and I was in uh, the top quartile of the financial advisors in my country. I
Mm-hmm.
was earning in the top 10% of North Americans. Like,
Mm-hmm.
honest to God, Keegan, when Gail wants something, she goes for it. Yet, I couldn't tell myself not to have a drink,
Yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, and what happened, and this is a little bit of a sidebar, change of subject on it, but one of the
Mm-hmm.
biggest, oh my God, one of the things in my heart, I have so much empathy for the families of that
Mm-hmm.
have loved ones that are in active addiction
Mm-hmm.
because it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't their choice. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the choice to have their son or their daughter or their spouse or or their niece or to live this high risk lifestyle. And
Mm-hmm.
there are so many overdoses right now and young people dying. And so for those families, like when I built my catalog of songs, one of the songs that I wrote is called Wings. Be your own wings. And so what happened with those loved ones, and I wrote a whole chapter for them to say, you have permission to be happy. Just
Mm-hmm.
because you have a loved one that you're on a parallel journey with that's struggling and is making choices or like we're saying non-choices maybe in a high risk lifestyle doesn't mean that you have to be in constant misery every
Yeah.
day and every hour of every day because the stronger you are when they're able to get help, you can be their support person, you can
Mm-hmm.
be their advocate. So I when my son was going through it, I learned everything there was to know about codependency and enabling and boundaries. And I got to learn the lingo. I got to learn the how to set up all these tools so that I could stay strong. And yeah, sometimes there was some guilt. I'd be at
Mm-hmm.
work and someone would say, "How's your day going, Gail?" And I'd say, "Amazing." And then I'd go to my office and say, how can you be amazing when you have a child living on the streets?
Mm.
And when the phone rings, you don't know if it's the police or if they're going to say he's in the hospital. Like it was,
Mm-hmm.
I was playing around with, but I learned all the tools to be able to compartmentalizing was a big, big part of that, right?
Yeah.
I could compartmentalize, and I could give myself an hour a day to cry or to moan or to deal with whatever legal issues were there. Like anyone that's listening to me that is a parent of, they know what I'm talking about. You're doing contracts with social services, you're talking jail, like, there's, it's a very challenging, it's a curveball. It's a very challenging parallel journey, but it is a parallel journey.
Yeah.
And so with my music, because I'm not a vocalist, I don't sing. So I write the songs. And so what I did was I co-produced and recorded them in Nashville. Where are you, Keegan?
I am in Texas.
Okay, so I'm in Canada. And so I did them with a studio in Nashville. So I was able to hire all the musicians and the vocalist. And then so I made a moniker. I produced them and I distributed them through an indie distributor. Sometimes I'm in my songs playing the keyboards, but sometimes I'm not even in them. I'm just the songwriter. So I called my moniker Gail T as Charged.
I love that.
And so yeah, so I say to your listeners, go listen to Wings, but be careful that you're in the right state of mind and you have a Kleenex box with you, because it is a very emotional song. But it's a song about giving the loved ones permission. And pretty much everyone that's an addict is in that situation. Not that their like their family members are in the situation because they're an addict, but them as an addict are in the situation because all their friends are addicts.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And so they're going to funerals. Right? And so they have to sort of navigate this whole journey as well.
Yeah. I love that. That is beautiful. And again, first of all, the book is Curveballs. And there's more to it, right? Curveballs.
Yeah, it's
unlocking.
actually unlocking. Here, I'll show you. I think we have video here, so I'll show you the cover of it, because it's pretty neat too.
There we go.
There's the cover of it with the little butterfly that has a treble clef on it. And so yeah, the subtitle is Unlocking Your Potential Through Personal Growth and Inspirational Music.
Awesome.
I know. And we're going to, like, I say to people a lot, like, we need this so much. So many people got beat up by COVID, right? COVID was just so, like I reinvented myself because I wanted to, but, a lot of people had to reinvent themselves. And now, starting yesterday, the trade war that your country and mine is in, we're going to go through another curveball. So
don't even talk about that.
I know. But all the more reason, like, my book is all about, giving you the inspiration to take care of yourself and to understand what's in your control and what's not in your control. Right? Because that's the big one, is to understand, if you have no control over a situation, then there's no, like, worrying isn't going to make that situation better. So a lot of, like, one of the biggest tools that I talk about is internal dialogue. Right? And I said, I love that tapping one that Anne was talking about.
EFT.
Yeah, the EFT. Like, there's so many. I mean, I even did a line of pendants that have little sayings on them. This one says, staying young. I'm going to turn 70 on my next birthday. So this is called Staying Young, and it's one of my songs. One of my songs is called Staying Young. And there's pendants that say, be your own wings, I got this, because it's a tactile item, right? So I say, if you're in your head, this is Tony Robbins, if you're in your head, you're dead. But if you're in there saying negative thoughts, oh, why did I cause my son to have this challenge? Or, like you said, like, if you find yourself, then I use a term saying garbage in, garbage out. And I got that from a long distance runner that wrote a book in the 70s. So if I find myself in my head saying, oh, I'm not going to be able to sell any of my books now because I sell them in the States on Amazon and we're going through this trade war. No, garbage in, garbage out, right? Garbage in, garbage out. Of course I'm going to sell more of my books. Everybody needs it now.
Yeah.
And with this pendant, you can scratch it and use it like as a tactile item to really get yourself out of your head. So yeah, that's one of the tools that I talk about. Like there's so many tools there's in every chapter, but I mentioned compartmentalizing, and another one is get control of your internal dialogue, because once you convince your subconscious mind of something, it'll go get it for you.
Yeah.
So, I convinced my subconscious mind that I was going to go into recovery, and I went into recovery. Like you get to control your subconscious mind. You get to control your mind. It's a lot of work. It's like training for a marathon.
Yeah.
You're not going to say, oh, I heard Gail talk on a podcast, so tomorrow I'm going to stop my negative thinking or my victim mentality. Yeah, no, it doesn't work like that, right? You have to work at it every day over and over again for days. Yep. And it'll take you 2 months, 6 months, 9 months, depending on where you're at right now.
Yeah, it really does take a lot of work, and that is one thing. A lot of people, I know myself, started off that way. Was I'm doing the work, why don't I see any results? And that's not really quite it. But I love that you're talking about your subconscious and changing its belief, essentially. So that way you can change the way that you're viewing the world, essentially. So how did you best reprogram yourself? What's your favorite technique that you found out personally?
Okay, so two of the ones that I already mentioned, there's no question that me changing my internal dialogue was number one. That was the biggest game changer, was changing my internal dialogue. Number two was believing in myself. Finding a way to realize that if I believed I could do something, I could do it. And so, when I talk about belief in the book, I say, if you believe you can run a marathon, you can. If you believe you can't run a marathon, you're right. Both ways you're right, right? It's whatever you believe. But there's also a section on limited beliefs, because if you understand where that came from, you'll realize that limited beliefs are just something that happened in your past. It's not a fact. A limited belief's not a fact. It's something that happened in your past that programmed your subconscious mind to think something's a fact that isn't. And so if you can identify what that is and work through it, and then you can change your limited beliefs.
Yeah.
Right? And so I have this thing where, I don't know, I almost want to use the term fake it till you make it. I won't tell myself I'm going to write a book. I'll tell myself I'm writing a book that's going to be done at the end of the year. Because if I tell myself I'm going to write a book, then my subconscious mind is always going to keep it as a future event.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to be giving it the right message. And then foundation, self-care. Self-care is huge. Eat, sleep, and exercise, right? And there's not a single person that's listening to this that doesn't know how to eat properly, how to exercise, and that they're not supposed to watch the news before they go to bed or the social media feed. Right? Like when I talk about it in the book, nothing I say is going to be new to anybody. It's not, but if you can figure out how to do it and how to make it give yourself that nutrition. Give yourself nutrition every day and exercise. Heck, if you don't want to go to the gym, go for a walk. Like just if you can build those three things into your life, because your body's the machine that your brain's housed in. Yeah. And if you're not taking care of the body, well, that's pretty hard on the brain.
Yeah. Yeah, that
right?
is.
Right? It's like your car, right? If you don't give your car some oil and some gas, it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to work for very long.
No,
And
not at
so
all.
if you want, because a lot of people say, well, my brain's not giving me like enough, it's not operating at a high enough level for me to follow through with some of the suggestions you're making, Gail. Well,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll go backwards and say, well, what are you doing with the house that the brain's in?
Yeah.
Right? Are you getting your 7, 8 hours sleep a night? Are you
Mm-hmm.
drinking water? Are you putting some fresh fruit and vegetables into your, it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in my book that I invented.
Yeah.
I'm just reiterating stuff that I learned by reading hundreds of books, and they all say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy a book on personal growth or peak performance and you highlight the top 10 things that they tell you to do, buy another book, highlight the top 10 things. You're going to find out that the overlap is 70%. They're just
Mm-hmm.
wording it differently.
Yeah. It's all about that perspective shift, right?
Yeah. Uh,
Um, because not everyone learns the same way that everyone else learns.
yeah.
And your experiences are unique to you, but also at the same time, your experiences are unique to someone and what they need to heal. So the way that you present things is going to be crucial for someone to finally have that, oh, I get it now moment. And while some people might be like, yeah, I know that, but it didn't work for me. But at the same time, I think that there's a willingness aspect that needs to go into play. But a lot of people aren't really that willing to really get better necessarily. But I'd say if they're listening to the podcast or if they're reading your book, that they're already on a good start to being willing to get better, right?
Yeah, if they're reading it, it's because they're on that journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you can get it on your Amazon or Barnes and Noble online. You can get this. It's everywhere in both of our countries.
Oh,
And so
nice.
the availability of it's going to be pretty easy. But what you just said, like sometimes they say you have to hear something at least 3 times
Mm-hmm.
before it sinks in.
Yeah.
And so it's exactly what you just said. They might have heard some of my messages before in different ways, and all of a sudden when they hear it my way, it'll be, oh yeah, aha. Meanwhile, they have heard it before, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe they won't aha with me, but they'll aha with the next one that they
Yeah.
read, right? Like it's
Uh-huh.
always, and everybody's different. We're all unique, and so we
Mm-hmm.
have to, like, some people have a struggle with my rose colored glasses and my bubbly personality. Like, it's just like not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get that. I totally get that. We all have different, we're all so different, but we're all so special.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just, if I can help anyone work through some of the challenges that they've experienced or their experience, then that's my mission.
That's awesome. And I love that because we need more people like you in the world that have been through quite literal hell, uh, made it through to the other side, and are willing to kind of reach their hand back and tell people, hey, this is like what I went through and how I got through it. So let me see if what went through can help you. And I love that you incorporate music into that because music is so powerful, and I think a lot of people don't really understand how powerful music is. Um, did music have a profound effect on you while you were in addiction or while you were getting out of addiction, and that's kind of why you went with it?
Yeah, so and I agree with you. Music is very healing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, you get dopamine from music. That's what you get from cocaine. You also get it from music. Folks, listen to music instead of
Yeah.
cocaine. And so yeah, but so because I grew up in the 70s, it was the rock and roll age, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I went to every concert there was. I went to see Alice Cooper, Led Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones. Like, that was my life.
Oh, man.
But we were hired in a kite, and so were the musicians. lessons, right? That was what I grew up on. And I continued to listen to that music and loved it and still do. My music is a combination of soft rock, country rock, pop rocks, a little bit of folk, a little bit of all of that in there. And
That's
so
awesome.
and so what happened to me, and I didn't know it, was that when I became a financial advisor, I took music out of my life by accident because I started, when I was driving to work, I started listening to economic books.
Ooh.
And then every chance I got, I was studying or reading about the economy or watching programs on the economy, the news channel, the stock market channel. And without even knowing it, I took music out of my life for the better part of 25 years. So when, not completely, but when I started taking those piano lessons, all of a sudden, I'm 58 years old, and all of a sudden, music did start flooding back into my life. I did start listening to it again. And it was like, oh my God, I didn't even know I had. And so I thought, yeah. So I said to my husband, would you, we were already financially independent. So I said, would you be okay? I'd like to retire a little earlier than planned and study music full time. And he said, yeah, no, go for it. He had already been retired for several years. So it was all good. And so, that's how I ended up bringing it back into my life. And that was awesome because, now I'm going to every concert there is. Once again, right? I've got tickets later on to go see Jelly Roll and to go see Cheap
nice.
Trick. And I like it. Heart.
That's awesome. Huh. That is so crazy that you actually almost took music entirely out of your life on accident.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever really met someone that's done that, and that's both impressive and scary at the same time.
But it tells you how your brain works.
Yeah, it really does. And I think that's why it's scary, because for that slip, it almost sounds like the addiction slip too. It's just that, okay, I'll just listen to an audiobook today instead of listening to this album. And then it just kind of goes all downhill, but not knowing that music has such benefits for you.
But at the time, it was a trigger, right? And I didn't know that either. I didn't realize that was what was going on, because I didn't listen to music straight. I mean, I wasn't straight. I was. There wasn't a day that I didn't do mind-altering substances. I went to work straight and did them at the end of the work day. But having said that, that's when I would listen to music too, was at the end of the work day.
Yeah.
Right? So that was part of, Eric Clapton was writing a song called Cocaine. I think it was Eric. Right? So it was, so without... Yeah, it was, and that's where, when I talk to people in the book and about curveballs, it's that if you haven't been using tools to change the trajectory of your life, and you've just been letting happen to you what comes your way, then you've sort of let your environment design your life. Right? And you don't have to do that. You can design your own life. And that's the part that and I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're 20 or 40 or 60 or 80. You could be any age. I think this ageism thing is the most bizarre thing I heard. How can somebody has the life experiences that a 60-year-old have be less valuable? That doesn't even make any sense. We'll take the people that have all the experience and all the knowledge from going through it, and we'll say they're less valuable to our community. I don't know. We're in some interesting times right now.
But we are.
But I don't care how old you are, and I don't care how many mistakes you made. I say, don't judge yourself. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. Today is what matters, right? No, you're not going to forget what you did in the past. That's it, it's what got you to where you are. It's still there. And I'm
Yeah.
not telling you to pretend it never happened. It did. Everything's there. But
Yep.
but you're at a point in your journey today where you can say, "Okay, I don't want the status quo. I want something different." And again, whether you're in active addiction, whether you're struggling with anxiety or depression, it doesn't matter. You could be bipolar, you could be schizophrenic, you could be like, this is mental health we're talking about here. You could have nothing wrong with you and just be the healthiest person on the planet. You still benefit from personal growth tools.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because
Yep.
because they're you figuring out your integrity, figuring out how to give back, right? There's something called a giver's high, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
so if somebody says, "Oh, woesy me, I'm having a rough day." I'll say, "Go do something nice for a stranger. Go
Yep.
go go feed somebody at the soup kitchen. Go to the homeless soup kitchen and feed people." You do something nice for someone else, dopamine.
Yep.
There,
Yep.
no, there you go. You got it again,
Darn it.
and that'll just change everything. So yeah, you have so much control, and learning what you can control and what you can, and what are your choices and what aren't your choices is part of the game. It's the game of life.
Yeah.
One of my songs is called "The Game of Life."
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yep.
And so here, how do I word this right? So music, at first it was tied with addiction, and then it kind of got slowly severed off until you were getting out of addiction. That's weird.
I know, and then it came back once I
Yeah.
was, I had been out of addiction for quite a while when it came back. But yeah, because, oh my God, it's so healing and it's so powerful. And so, yeah.
I love that loop because it's just one of those circles of life, and so hopefully you don't ever hit that cycle again.
Yeah,
where
I don't think I will. I don't think I will. And yeah, like it's so powerful. I remember I was on a bike trip. Actually, this spring I went biking in France, in the French Riviera. What an experience! But I met this couple, and they were from the States that were biking with us. And he said to me, my daughter and my granddaughter went to a Taylor Swift concert, and they spoke to me about it afterwards, and they said it was life-changing. And this man said to me, "I don't understand. How could that concert possibly, like, this bike trip could be life-changing, but how could that concert be life-changing?" And I said, "Well, first of all, if either of your daughter or your granddaughter are struggling with anything emotionally, whether it's a relationship or especially teenagers, right? They're going through all the hormonal change. If they're, they're struggling with something and they're feeling insecure about it, a lot of the lyrics to Taylor's songs would have given them permission to go through it and empowered them to take control of accept your emotions, cry when it's time to cry, and then let go." And that man said to me, oh, I understand now."
Yeah.
And that conversation was about the healing power of music.
That's
right?
awesome.
The fact that someone can go to a concert and say it changed my life because it did a context shift in their brain and made them realize how beautiful and how important they are.
Yeah.
And that's what music does.
Yeah, music is very profoundly powerful, and it's changed my life for the better. I know it's changed your life for the better, and obviously that person's and their daughters, and like, holy cow. But with that, music is one of those things that we can kind of control because we get to choose what music we listen to, right? So it's even more empowering whenever you get it created, I bet, huh?
Yeah. Like every song, my catalog right now has about 18 songs in it.
Oh wow.
And so I think the book has 13 of them. And so out of the songs that, like every single song I wrote was
Mm-hmm.
an inspirational song based on a curveball that life threw at me.
That's
And
awesome.
so it's a lot, the songs are a lot like choices. I wrote choices. I co-wrote it
Mm-hmm.
with this amazing musician, Carolyn Dawn Johnson. She's a
Hmm.
country musician out in Nashville. She's a Canadian, but she's lived in Nashville for a long time, and she's
Uh-huh.
just amazing, amazing. And we wrote this song right after COVID called
Mm-hmm.
Choices, and it's about all the sharks trying to pull us under, and the shark being COVID, right? And
Mm-hmm.
but it's like we do get choice. We do have choices. We get
Mm-hmm.
to choose. And I mentioned the song Wings and the Game of Life, and all the songs were our songs, inspirational songs to say, y- y- life throw curveballs at you. I know that. I
Mm-hmm.
know you might be hurting right now, but here's some, you're still beautiful. You're still amazing. There's one song that it's about you and you alone. And it's like, if you could see what I see and how beautiful you are.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's what inspired all these songs was my not just my own experiences and life journeys, but when I come across people, like especially in that music industry, man,
Mm-hmm.
they think if they hit 30 years old, they might as well go work on construction. Like, might as well leave the industry. I know over the hill, and I'm there. Whoa, whoa, whoa! That's not how it works.
Yeah.
I mean, I did my MBA in my 50s, right? I ran a
Mm-hmm.
marathon in my 50s and I wasn't even a runner. Like, age is nothing. Age
Age
is a
is.
concept that we made
Mm-hmm.
up.
It's just a number, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, we are getting close to the end of this episode, unfortunately. So, real quick, your book is Curveballs, and it's all about understanding personal growth, and you've also got inspirational music in there with QR codes, which is super duper cool. But one quick question is, we don't have a whole lot of time to really go into more stories of yours, and I feel like you deserve more of that because, I mean, you've come this far in life. There's no way we can get all of your story in just one episode, right? So my question is, could we have you back on the show at some point?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And I do have a website, so you can
Oh
go to
yeah.
gailtaylormusic.com.
Okay.
And if you go to gailtaylormusic.com, then
Mhm.
it'll give you like Facebook, Instagram, Spotify,
Ooh.
YouTube, the whole world that we're in right now,
Mhm.
and places to buy the book if you do want the book. But
Okay.
yeah, and I would love to come back, Keegan. I really enjoyed this. You're good at this.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Um, and Gail Taylor music, and then Curveballs, understanding personal growth through inspirational music. Was that the full
Yeah,
title?
pretty much
Ah.
unlocking your potential.
Oh,
Right?
so
It,
close.
it it's all about leveling up in life, and it doesn't
Mhm.
matter where you are. Like I said, wherever you are now, you can level up to the next step.
Yep, you sure can. Because it's all about getting that experience. If we got a little bit of experience, but not quite what we wanted, that experience is going to build us right up to where we do want to go.
Yeah.
So, um, but since you are up in Canada, I do have one question for you though.
Okay.
What's up with the baggage milk?
I don't know. I can't answer the question because it's more of an Ontario thing, and I'm in Alberta.
Ah,
We actually don't have bag milk in my province, but I grew up in
mm.
Ontario. I grew up in Ottawa, so we did have the bag milk when I was a child.
Oh man,
Too funny.
that's always been something I've always been like, I don't, because you have it in a bag, but that bag goes in a plastic thing that looks like the milk container anyways, right? It just never made any sense. It just was like, hmm. But I do have to say, I love the maple syrup, so
Oh,
I don't
good.
know. I don't know if it really comes from Canada,
Yeah, it
but
does. Yeah, we have
okay,
lots of
good.
maple trees here, and so yeah, we do. We tap our trees and make our maple syrup.
So, have you ever had maple straight from the tree? Does it work that
Yeah,
way?
yeah. Actually, one of my sisters lives on an acreage. A few of them live on
Ooh.
acreages, and one of them, her husband taps the trees every year, so we get the fresh. It does like
Huh.
when you tap your tree. Just like think of a tap, right? You
Mm-hmm.
just literally take a hammer and put the tap in, and then you
Mm-hmm.
wrap a bucket around it, and the maple syrup just comes out into the bucket.
Huh.
But then there's more to it than that. They have to boil
Yeah.
it and do the processing stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, maple syrup comes right out of the trees.
Huh. That's got to be one of the coolest things ever. But I don't know. I just like syrup, so I'm kind
Nice.
of weird like that. Um, but I do have to thank you again for this episode. It has been an absolute honor and a pleasure to speak with you. It's so good to see other people going through addiction and getting out on the other side and wanting to try to help others get through it, to understand their potential, and to just help end the stigma on mental health and addiction, because addiction isn't really quite what a lot of people think it is, at least not from what I know that I first thought what addiction was, what I experienced, and then what it took to get through it. So everything that I thought I knew about it was wrong. And so I want other people to kind of go like, oh, maybe there's something to addiction that maybe I'm addicted to. Oh, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And right back at you, Keegan, with everything you just said about me. I feel the same way about you.
Hmm.
Doing this podcast, that's amazing. Offering this to for people to hear and see, and even life after addiction, right? A
Hmm.
lot of people think they have to live in constant recovery,
Hmm.
right? One day at
Yeah.
a time. And but yeah, no, you get to move on and be successful, and you might have to work some programs on a regular basis. I'm not saying that's a no, but
Hmm.
you don't, like, I don't think about my addiction every day.
Yeah.
I don't
There
even
is
think
light on
about
the
it
other
every
side.
year. Well, other than right now, because I'm doing a lot of keynote speeches for recovery. It's so,
Woo.
yeah, yeah. I think it's so awesome that I can share my story and help other people get to their next level.
Yeah, that is super awesome. And we need more people like you in this world. And so
Thank
uh,
you.
I know that you're paving the way for other people, you're inspiring other people with what you're doing, and especially learning how to play the piano. Like, holy cow, the piano, like, for anyone that has not seen some sheet music for the piano, it is crazy. And so, first of all, mad props to you on that, because that is a lot. So,
Yeah, well, it's funny. It's like because I learned how to play the piano at age 58, people put me on this same level as long distance runners and mountain climbers. And I'm there, whoa, I'm going to go share my message and help everybody live their best lives if they're going to do that.
that's
Too
awesome.
funny.
Well, it is amazing. It is a skill that not a lot of people can do. And so, what may seem easy to you now was not easy back in the day, right?
No,
So,
and it's not easy. Like you have to practice for a lot of hours every day.
hmm,
It's still a work in progress.
yeah. Just like, I don't know, living life every day, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Thank you very much. I can't wait until we have you back on the show. And for everyone out there, thank you for listening to Retrieving Sanity. Thank you for listening on WDJY 99.1 FM. And as always, just we love you. Oh, real quick, Gail, do you know a three-digit number that someone can call whenever they're having suicidal tendencies or a crisis of some kind?
Yeah, I actually put it in my book, but it's different in different areas.
Ooh,
Right? I
yeah.
think, like, yeah, I think that, and what I tried to do in my book was give you, like, I think in my area it might be 311. In your
Mm.
area, do you know what it is in your area?
For my area, it is 988.
Yeah. So see, I think it is different in different areas, but
Mm-hmm.
you have 911, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Everybody, I think, has that consistency, the
Mm-hmm.
911. So if you phone the 911, they'll know and they'll give you
Mm-hmm.
the number,
Yeah.
right, to say that I'm suicidal. And yeah,
Yep.
I say call that number because I know folks that have and are and were steered in the right direction and are very happy and very, very happy with life.
Yeah. So, definitely call that number if you're having any of those issues. So, again, Gail, thank you very much for everything. It's been an honor and a pleasure, and I can't wait to speak to you again, okay?
Thanks, Keegan.
Alrighty. And everyone out there, see y'all next time. Shalom.
Bye.
Alrighty.